No, we do not make a bracha on the solar eclipse because it's not necessarily a good thing.
It's a bad omen.
I know that
potentially.
It's wanting America to support Israel with Jews.
I know that was your whole drasha, but I was looking at the eclipse.
But there are people that say you should make an osei maaseh voracious.
No, nobody says that.
No,
Nobody holds.
I heard. I remember where I heard it.
So let's just post this to the Chavra.
My friend was with Rabbi Trump today in Dallas.
Yeah, he told me. Yeah. So we didn't learn today because usually we learn Mondays, but he was in Dallas taking a look at the eclipse. But Lemaisa. That's called likoy chama, that the sun is being smacked, right?
Isn't it predetermined?
Yes. So
how does that? So you're saying it's an omen that you know?
No. When people say, when the Gemara says it's a siman ra,
Right.
it doesn't mean that we don't know why. We know why. I mean, there's a lot of things that are siman ra in the world, like I don't know. Rainbow is a different sugya. The rainbow is a different sugya. But there's a lot of things in the world, like Chodesh Av, for example, is a siman ra, right? I mean, happens every year, right? But there's certain things that we don't do during Chodesh Chodesh Av.
People were saying, "Oh, it's because of this."
So the Gemara says that there's certain averos that people do, for averos that because of these things, there's likui chama, which is obviously not because a person did this avera. There's an eclipse because the eclipse is going to happen. We know exactly when it's going to happen for the next, bajillion years. We know exactly when likui chama is going to be taking place. In fact, somebody said to me today, this is very good to know. The Talmidei Chachamim were always very well aware of when all the eclipses were going to be happening because we studied astronomy and astrology. We studied everything that was going on. They said Columbus in 1503. Columbus gets to the Aztecs, the Incas, Aztecs, and he wanted to get something out of them, and they refused, and whatever the case was, he had with him Rav Moshe Zakuta. Rav Moshe Zakuta had a kuntras, on the on astronomy, and he knew that there was going to be an eclipse coming, like shortly. He said, "If you don't listen to me, I'm going to make the sun disappear in the sky, and it's not going to come back until you listen to me." And they're like, yeah, whatever. And 2 days later, whatever it was, there was an eclipse. They were like, we'll give you everything you want. Meaning, because the Talmidei Chachamim always knew when the eclipses were going to happen.
It's interesting because the Egyptians worship the sun.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is coming out of Chodesh, and also our first mitzvah was
Chodesh Nisan,
right,
yeah.
so which involves the moon. So it's the power of the moon over the power of the sun. So at least in this case, I don't see it as
a bad thing. So the Gemara says that it's a siman ra la'avdei kochavim, but also the Gemara says siman ra la'olam. It's bad for everybody. It's not good for anybody. It's worse for people that worship the sun. That's for sure true. But Rav Moshe, people don't know this, but Rav Moshe wrote really three primary svarim. Everybody knows about Igros Moshe. Yes, Igros Moshe. Rav Moshe Weinstein wrote all of these letters that were sent around to the entirety of the world, and they collected them and turned it into Igros Moshe, published since the 50s. We have Igros Moshe Chelik Aleph. Yeah, maybe the 40s. Yeah, there were some tshuvas that I think he wrote in Europe that were published in America afterwards, but while he was still in Russia. But that was Igros Moshe. Rav Shachta said when he got married, Rav Moshe came to the wedding, and he gave him a copy not of Igros Moshe but Dibros Moshe. That's Rav Moshe's Shurim Chidushim and Shas. So he says everybody learns my Igros. Maybe you're a Talmid Chacham. Maybe you'll learn my Dibros. Dibros Moshe is Blachman told me that Dibros Moshe is not for Yeshiva Bachrim and it's not for Rabbeim. It's for Rosh Yeshiva. It's a sefer that's you have to be holding in everything to like Chap Dibros Moshe. But he also wrote Drosh Moshe. Drosh Moshe is a small kuntras. There's a bunch of different copies of it. I got like the thin one, the thin version of it. They gave those out at the yeshiva dinners. Rav Moshe's Vartlach on the Parsha, but he also gave long drushes. long drushes, which he wrote up at the back of the Drush Moshe, the fat volume of the Drush Moshe. So in Drush Beis, Moshe gave a Shabbos Shuva drasha. He speaks about Tshuva in a number of different applications, but he goes through the whole sugya in Masach Sukkah on Likui Chama and explaining what exactly it is. He says Al Pi Pashtus, and there's many madrigas to this Gemara. But he says Al Pi Pashtus that the Or HaChama is the symbol that Chazal have for enjoyment in this world. Good stuff happening to you. Everybody enjoys good stuff. The Or Lavana is the Or HaSeichel, is wisdom. Wisdom happens when it's not done, when things are not clear, but you have wisdom. Or HaChama is, it's warm, it's sunny, it's beautiful, life is good. So he explains that sometimes it happens that the sun sets. And if you're a person that your whole life is illuminated by the sun, by the time the sun sets, you're in big trouble. If you're a moon person, you can handle the dark. If you're a sun person, you're in trouble. It says Likui Chama is the indication that it's possible for a person to have a whole system of beliefs, a whole hierarchy of values, and all of it is simply a justification for them enjoying their lives. And those are the Averos that the Gemara discusses. Ramesh explains that each one of those 4 Averos, which we're not going to do right now, but each one of those 4 Averos is a piece of people enjoying things for the sake of enjoying them and having a svara, explaining why these things are not such a problem. So, for example, he gives the example of two brothers that are killed on the same day. So this is the Gemara's marshal for people going to war against each other. So people go to war against each other because in personalities or nations or families, so people go to war against each other. They say it's because of whatever it is. Most of the time, it's because you got stuff and I want it. And you talk about philosophies, and you talk about theories, and you talk about religions. Most of the time, it is people's base, like animalistic tendencies, and then people build the philosophy on top of it. Likui Chama is the moments where it becomes obvious that that's not good. Meaning, the sun goes dark. All of the things that you said, well, it's wonderful. We're doing this, it's wonderful. It's not so wonderful. That's Pashas Likui Chama is, and that's what it's a simon. Simon is HaKadosh Baruch Hu plugged into the Bria, that there would be reminders from time to time that this world does not last as it is forever. Things are not so simple.
To that end,
yeah.
Should you be, doing these glasses and looking at it?
Yeah, you can look at it, no problem. But B'nai Shachar writes, for example, that we have a minhag not to get married towards the end of the month, because that's when the moon is waning. Right? There's Likui Alavana. The moon is waning. Except in Chodesh Adar, because Chodesh Adar we've already changed to La Yehudim Hayasa'ir Simcha V'Sasa. That's the minhag, that Chodesh Adar you get married the whole month.
But it's a hint as to something that the world loves a certain way, but it can. Why would we get funny glasses and look at it and have a...
Yeah, so the Chasam Sofer writes that it's Kedai and there was an eclipse in Radin during the days of the Chavetz Chaim, and he went out and told the yeshiva to go out and to look at it and to realize go and see. It feels small for a moment. I mean, that's the point, is that you realize that it's not so simple. Like this thing called the sun, which is where all of life on earth gets sustenance from, is also a nivra. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge of that too. Meaning, it's Simon Ra in the sense that it's reminding you of your vulnerabilities, and it's reminding it's a big Torah in humility. So that's how the Chasam Sofer says. I think the Chasam Sofer writes this on pasuk in Kisava Ashkifa Mimam Kach Chamin Hashamayim, that he darshans on that pasuk, that when there's an eclipse, that gives a person a feeling that there's a God in the world. I was standing outside with some of the children in the high school today, and one of them took the glasses and looked up and said, "Wow, I've never felt so small." I was like, "That's chasm saif. That's pshat. I've never felt so small." Yeah, what do you say?
I was going to say, and yet with the moon, we not only do, not only Kiddush Levana, but everything is based around the moon, not around the sun.
Yes, it's based on both, but we
well, okay,
because the seasons are based on the sun, and we make sure to align the lunar and solar calendar every year. That's called the Ibur Chodesh.
Yeah.
It's mitzvah Chodesh Hazeh.
Yeah, but still, you're basically making a bracha every month to the moon, which the only time you do that to the sun is once every
28 years, or once every 28 years we make a birkas hachama.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the Kiddush Levana, is because yes, we base our calendar off of the moon, but we make sure that but we make sure that it's aligned with the solar calendar. But you saw Medim Levana. So the Maharal speaks about this extensively. The Shlach Kodesh speaks about it extensively. Is that the Chazal tell us that you saw this Medim Levana. We are compared to the moon. Our trajectory is waxing and waning. We go up, we go down. We go up, we go down. Which is the tefillah that we say during Kiddush Levana, that there should be no miut. That the moon
bring back the moon to its.
So what does that mean? Is that it won't wax and wane any longer.
Right.
It'll just be permanent. What are we going to do with Rosh Chodesh? I don't know. We'll figure it out then. Right? We'll figure it out. Pasha says, the Maharal says that's what the Gemara is trying to tell you. The Gemara is trying to tell you that the potential for sin, the potential for human failure exists because the world is not perfect, and that is hinted to by the notion of an eclipse. Now, on an astronomical level, you have to. How is it possible that we could have a setup between the sun, the moon, and the earth that we wouldn't have eclipses? So why does an eclipse happen on an astronomical level?
I don't know, but
Moon is part
It
of
has
the
to do with
process.
the orbits and the speed of the orbits and the rotation.
Yeah, so we'll just explain very, very simple physics here. This is very complicated, but we'll just explain the simplest part of the physics of it. Sun, Earth, right? The Earth is revolving around the sun. That's the Earth's orbit. The moon is revolving around the Earth. Those two orbits are not parallel. If they were at the same line, then you would have an eclipse every month.
You can only see one side of the moon.
No, you'd still see the same side of the moon. That's what we only ever see the same side of the moon. But if the orbit of the moon was at the same parallel as the orbit of the Earth and the Sun, then whenever the moon came in between the Earth and the Sun, you'd have an eclipse. But the orbit of the moon vis-a-vis the orbit of the Earth around the Sun is at a 5-degree tilt, which means that it misses most of the time, but sometimes it hits, right? Meaning sometimes it intersects during a full moon, meaning when the moon is closest to the sun, that 5-degree orbit is going to end up being in the direct line between the Earth and the sun. That's called an eclipse. And on the other side of it is a lunar eclipse, right? Solar eclipse would be the shadow of the moon on the Earth, and lunar eclipse, the shadow of the Earth on the moon. That would be true at every single degree tilt, except for 90 degrees. If there was a 90-degree orbit of the moon around the Earth, then it would never intersect with the orbit of the Earth around the sun. There would never be eclipses. But the moon would be permanently visible in the sky. Well, that's what we daven for. Is that the light of the moon should be permanent, no waxing, no waning. That would be the situation. Now,
isn't that what was and then was taken away?
Well, on the 4th day of creation, yes.
By Bris Milah, is Hakatan Kagadol.
Correct.
So a reference
yes.
to the moon and the sun.
Right, but Pashas, what we're saying is that the moon is waxing and waning, and that's indicative of the Jewish people. We are waxing and waning, but it'll get to a point that we are permanently in place with no waxing, no waning. We just are. That's it. Now, whether that means that the moon is actually going to shift its orbit to Be'ez Mashiach, I don't know. Have to get a very big asteroid, right? No, but is it impossible? No, it's certainly not impossible. But is that meaning? Is that pshat or is that a mashal to the pshat? I think the Maharal B'derech Klal would say that this is a mashal to our understanding of the world. Hakadosh Baruch Hu created the world with an understanding for us to understand that there is a possibility on a astronomical level that there would be no such thing as waxing and waning, and no such thing as the moon getting bigger and smaller, and no such thing as eclipses. That's a possibility. But that's not how Hashem created the world, because Hashem created the world with the possibility of things not going right. And that's the idea of there being a capacity for Averos. We have the capacity to Averos, and the eclipse reminds us that the world isn't perfect, and that there is a potential for people to sin and to mess up. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, just understand that this whole world is not taken for granted. It's not permanent. I'm in charge of this. That's pshat. Now, this is obviously very deeply connected to everything that is going on here. I've got your sheets. They came out of the printer. Those are the answer sheets as well, so you can take a look. As we get now, Baruch Hashem, firstly, L'chaim, it's Chodesh Nisan. Good Chodesh. We are entering from the world of Pekida into the world of Zechira, because now things are warming up already. Things are getting exciting. There's a long discussion in the Rishonim and Achronim Poskim exactly what the schedule of the plagues was. What was the schedule of the plagues? Meaning, when did each of the plagues roll out? Chazal tell us that there was a year for the plagues. Most likely, the simplest reading of the Ramban, at least, said Rosh Chodesh Nisan was the night of Rosh Chodesh Nisan was when HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe and Aaron that HaChodesh Zalachem Rosh Chodeshim, and he told them, tell the Jewish people that in a few days' time you're going to take a Korban Pesach, and that was the beginning of them taking a Korban Pesach. I mean, they got told on Rosh Chodesh that they should take the Korban Pesach, or within a few days of Rosh Chodesh, everybody started taking the Korban Pesach. But it's also Makas Choshech. It seems to be the pshat in the Psukim, at least the way that the Ramban understands it, is that Rosh Chodesh Nisan was Makas Choshech. In 2 weeks' time, there's going to be Makas Bechoros. But it means that the time that the Jewish people were told to take the Korban Pesach was the days of darkness. And Rashi tells us, "V'chamushim alu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim." Rashi quotes the Medrash that only 1/5 of the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, and 4/5 of them died during Makas Choshech. Why did they die during Makas Choshech? Pashtus is because they didn't want to take the Korban Pesach, meaning they were the people that weren't going to be getting out of Mitzrayim because they didn't want to. They didn't want to offend the Egyptian gods.
Didn't want to take that halal flight, right?
Right. They didn't want to offend the Egyptian gods. They didn't want to offend the Egyptian neighbors. They didn't want to shech the Korban Pesach.
They don't want to lose their American salary.
1 second.
Right.
Marcus Choshech is 3 days, correct?
6 days.
6 days. So how does that work out with Makas Bechoros and the first night?
Makas Bechoros is on the night of the 15th.
Yeah.
So Makas Choshech was around now. Maybe started on 6 days after Nisan was the end of Makas Choshech.
Okay.
And then 4 days after that was the day that everybody had to have their Korban Pesach by. That was Shabbos HaGadol. Right? That was yeah. So exactly the timeline is complicated, but it would seem to be that Makas Choshech was during the new moon, meaning on a natural level the sky went dark and everything else went dark too. Makas Choshech was the Gra explains. The Gra is a phenomenal mahalach in what Makas Choshech was. He says the Gra says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu flipped the Seder HaBriah, totally flipped it on its head. What does that mean? It says the way that the creation operates is that you have a constant battle between light and darkness. But if there is one light in the room, it can illuminate the whole room. The whole room is dark. So he says Makas Choshech was the inverse of that.
Wow.
Meaning,
The black
one
hole.
darkness.
meaning if you had one candle in the room, it shed no light. You saw the candle, but it shed no light. It was swallowed by darkness. Frightening, right? That's a frightening way of thinking about it, meaning that the darkness swallowed the light, meaning the inverse of the way that light operates now. HaKadosh Baruch Hu flipped light and darkness. Right? It's crazy to imagine that. It's like you turn on a flashlight and you would literally see that. By the way, I was thinking about that today because if you looked at the eclipse with the eclipse glasses, you see nothing other than the sun. It illuminates nothing. It's just cheshach. That's it. It's all that you see. It's just cheshach, except for the sun. That's it. Okay. So we are entering into Nisan, which is the time of the Sechira. And the Ramchal is going to explain to us, and with the little bit of time that we have, we'll just see at least the beginning of this Inyan. He says, we're going to explain the pasuk, V'hayashem lemelech al kol haaretz. What does it mean, V'hayashem lemelech al kol haaretz? Hashem will be the king of the whole world. So,
Isn't he already that?
right. So that's obviously the question. What does it mean by Hayashem lemelech, as opposed to by Hayashem melech al kol haaretz? We say Hashem melech, Hashem malach, Hashem yimlach l'olam va'ed. Right? Hashem was the king. He is the king, and he will be the king. This is Hayahu ve'viyah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. He is. He was. He will be. Right? Was. He is. He will be. Right? Hayahu ve'viyah. That's the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, is the letters of Hayahu ve'niyah. What does it mean by Hayashem lemelech al kol haaretz? So we'll skip the first paragraph here for a moment, just because that's the Kabbalah part. We'll get into the Malchus piece for a second. What does Hayashem lemelech al kol haaretz mean? He says, Ki melech kol haaretz kvarhu, kvar haya tamid. He always was the king. He was the king of the whole world. You say this in Adon Olam. Adon Olam, Pashtus, simple reading of Adon Olam, is it is a meditation on the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. Right? Because we spell the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, but we don't say Hashem's name like that. We say it as Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, the name of Adnus, of mastership. So every morning we are supposed to start davening with Adon Olam. Why? Because Shulchan Aruch writes, so this is in Siman Hey and Shulchan Aruch, that you have to have kavanah for the brachas. You have kavanah for what the Shem Hashem is when you say the Shem Hashem. So we think about it every morning. What is the kavanah when you say Yud Kei Vav Kei? So that's Adon Olam is the master. That's what I'm thinking about. Hashem Malach, but Terem Kol Yisrael. He always was the king. Leisna Sabach Havsakol. Once everything was created, Azai Melach Shemanikra, then it's called Melach. At the end of all things, the heat death of the universe, right? Levado Yimlach Nara. He will still be king. He is, he was, he will be. That's pshat in the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the Navi Zechariah is saying, "V'hayashem lemelech al kol haaretz." He's going to be the king. He's not the king. So that's why he said lemelech. He says, "Ki ein shum nivra ba'al b'lo rishus haklal." Nothing in existence operates without his permission. The Rebbeinu Shalom gives rishus. He allows everything to be. The Balatani explains that the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is the perpetual tense of mehaveh es hakol, making things exist. Hashem is perpetually making things exist. Without the Rebbeinu Shalom wanting things to exist, they don't exist. So nothing exists without Hashem's permission, without Hashem's desire for it to be there. It says, "Ela she'ein kol ha'avodim mekirin asay." But not everything recognizes that they are working with the permission of the king. Most people, most humans certainly, operate under the assumption that I'm here because I am. Because that's where I am. That's what happened. My parents or society or the world or whatever it might be.
Science.
Right? Dharma, karma, shawarma, whatever it is, whatever brought me to this place. That's what and I do as I wish. But that's not true. Everything is only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants it to be. That's the reality. And there will come a time in the future, Yakiru Hakol v'yishtabdu elav mirat that everybody will recognize Hashem and will declare their fealty to Hashem mirat soinam, because they want to, because they recognize it, because they understand it. Meaning the world is going to say, Psst, Taka Hashem is the king. That's why Yashem Lemelech, he says, ki az efoch el amim, the pasuk in Sefania, the Rebbe Hashem says, then I will turn to the nation, meaning I'm going to flip them all over. They're going to look at me and go, so you're in charge. That's why Yashem Lemelech. It's a word of Hakara. Now, by the way, this, of course, is the basic theme of the Eser Makos, according to the Ramban. The Ramban at the end of Parshas Bayah explains that each of the 10 Makos is part of the curriculum. That's the curriculum for understanding that there is a God. So the Ramban explains, and we'll say it just outside, although we're going to do Chazar on this. I make sure to mention this at least once or twice every year. And I think it's made it into every single Shabbos HaGadol Drasha ever. Right? I mean, in the last Baruch Hashem 9 years that we've been here, I think I mentioned this Ramban every single, because this is the Ikar of the Ramban, right? So this is the Ikar of the curriculum of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Says the Ramban, there are different kinds of atheists in the world, meaning non-believers. There are those that believe Olam Kadman, that the world has always existed. What created the universe? The universe. It's always been here. There are many forces, lots of things controlling it. Who created it? No one created it. There's controlling things, but it's always been there. There's no creator. No creator. It's a reality. That's it. It's always been there. This is the universe is infinite and has always been as is. That's Olam Kadman. So against that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows Paro that the Bubala, that's not true. Because if the universe has always been there, then I wouldn't be able to do this. Elamai, I'm in charge of it. So there is a nature to the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim that is an education that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Kainei Shamayim Ba'aretz, that he is the owner of Shamayim Ba'aretz and therefore the creator, meaning his creative rights over the entirety of the Bria. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do whatever he wants to the Bria because it's his. He made it. He's Kainei Shamayim Ba'aretz. And then there are those that argue, okay, there's a creator. There's a creator, but the creator is not a conscious creator. It's a science, right? Mother Nature, right? Mother Nature created the world. I mean, it was created, but that it's not interactive personality, this creator thing. My guess is that that's probably what most secular Americans believe. Right. I mean, there's a creation. What created it? Something. The aliens. Not saying it was the aliens, but it was the aliens. Right? Exactly. The Jews. Which, by the way, is true. Bishvil Yisrael Shenik Bereshis. That's how the Bible says. Bereshis bara Elokim. For the sake of the Jews. That's why the world exists. Right? Mark Zuckerberg, don't tell them. Yeah. Bishvil Yisrael Shenik Bereshis. The Jews. Fine. So there are those that believe that the world has always existed. Mark has proved them wrong. There are people that believe that that there is a creator, but that creator is not interactive. And there are those that believe that there is a creator. The creator is a personality, but doesn't care. That's the watchmaker, right? Meaning he said it, and then off you go, right? He's playing golf somewhere in the celestial realms. He doesn't care what goes on here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the 10 Makos, as a full educational curriculum available for Para and for everybody, for all generations to come, to say, those three things are incorrect, let me show you. Rav Salvador showed in Yeshiva that HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Moshe Rabbeinu was zeicher to the best student in Kol HaTorah Kula, best student in the history of humanity. Who's the best student? Para. Para is the best Talmud. He sits in the front of class and accepts nothing until you prove it to him totally. Right? It's an excellent Talmud. He's not accepting it. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to, that's the way the Sforno says it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to be mechazik as para so that he doesn't cave. until he is intellectually convinced that there is a God in the world, and that it is the creator, and that he is interactive, and that he cares about what goes on, he's not going to let them go. He's not going to be a man until he is thoroughly, utterly, intellectually convinced. And that's why the curriculum plays out. At no point in time, I mean, if Paro were to accept that there is a God in the world, Marcus would have stopped. But the point was, it was the curriculum. Until Yechab, we're going to keep going. That's why when he finally says, okay, I get it. Get out of here. So at that point in time, now he's Chab. And that's why the Marcus are this curriculum. That's why Yashem le melech al haaretz. The whole world is like, look at that. You see, by the way, so just Kedai to point out, is that even once you have had the greatest teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, demonstrating to you all of the basics and the most advanced theoretical physics, quantum mechanics, a full-on, hands-on, year-long course in the belief in the existence of God and what Hashem is capable of, it's still possible, once you've accepted all of that, you got an A on the course, to have 3 days later to go, I don't like the fact that the Jews left. I'm going to go chase after them. Right? Meaning it's possible that a person could be like the biggest maamar in the world and still be an idiot. I mean, still have a yitzhara to go and do things. Right? Just HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mechatzik his slave para, he pushes him, strengthens his heart. He goes, do you still believe it? Meaning 3 days ago by Marcus Becharis, you believed it. Now, what do you say? Para's like, yeah, let's get them. No, this is all of us. Right? Person can be solidly, totally, and utterly convinced that Moshe Amos, Terasa Amos, and then go and do something stupid. It's possible. People could believe it totally. The capacity to have an intellectual, totally ironclad intellectual belief system, and then go and do something dumb.
Well, the Kishbonei Yisrael, right?
Right.
After they
100%.
Everything in the
Little crack.
That's it. Yeah.
Insert everything.
Little crack.
Anything, and poke a hole in it, was out. Done. Right? That's it. That's all that you. That's all that it takes. But such a thing is possible. So what does it mean by Yashem lemelech al kalaris? Is that at that point in time, everybody's going to look around and go, that's the guy. That's it. Kodesh Baruch Hu is melech. He says v'lachein amar v'haya Hashem lemelech. Kodesh Baruch Hu is going to be lemelech as a king for them. He says ki akiru le'amito. Now understand the truth of this. V'yizkaru b'shmai, and they will mention him by name. Uvidrachav, and with his and with the ways that he is operating. I mean, people are going to go, Hashem did this. By Hashem lemelech, they're going to realize that this is all by the will of the king. It says, "V'amar Shem HaKadosh Havaya Baruch Hu," and that's why V'ayah Hashem Yud Kei Vav Kei lemelech HaKolaretz Shu Klolos Kol HaMa'aris, because that is the totality of all of the ma'aris, of all of the emanations and illuminations of everything that Hashem wants in the world. And we've explained that HaKadosh Baruch Hu operates in lots and lots and lots of different ways. HaKadosh Baruch Hu operates throughout all of creation with steps, meaning we don't eat food directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We eat food that is the will of Hashem for there to be an earth that grows grain that can be made into bread. Meaning there's a lot of steps. Man, for example, when Klal Yisrael were eating man in the Midbar, that was a much higher madrega of Ratzon Hashem. Less steps, right?
Well, the original intention was not to have all the steps.
Correct. Meaning in Gan Eden, there were fewer steps. And those steps, and this is important, those steps are what the Mekabalim refer to as klippos. Those are the things that need to be removed in order to get to the thing which is Ratzon Hashem. So, if I want to eat an apple, I can go to a tree and eat an apple. But if I want to eat a watermelon, I have to hack through a thick shell and eat the watermelon, right? That's a klippa. A klippa does two things. It makes it hard to access, but it makes sure that the food doesn't go bad. So it has a purpose, but it doesn't taste good. That is how Chazal understood the nature of evil in general. It's shomer sapri. It's there because it is making sure that the thing that you want is healthy and good. It keeps the good good. Doesn't rot, doesn't fall into disrepair and decay. But don't eat it. It is a shomer. It creates boundaries for you so that your good is good. But don't eat it. It is good for something, but it's not good in and of itself. It has purpose, but not taste and flavor. We don't go eating those things. Now, everything in the world has shells and husks. Everything. Because everything, since the Eitz Hadas Tov Ra, has both Tov and Ra in it. And the mashal that Chazal use over and over and over again is wheat, because wheat everybody was familiar with. There are 3 different husks in the wheat. There's moitz, tevin, and subin. And when you want to, so the shell and the husk, so there's 3 different things that surround the wheat kernel. You have to get rid of all those things. The malachos on Shabbos that go through the Siddur of the Pas. So those are all the things that you need to do in order to be mevarer the pri. You have to be mevarer it. You have to take away all the bad stuff and just be left with what you want. And all of those things require birur, require clarification, clarity. And all of these avodas are true both by wheat and by people, and by activities, and by relationships, and by intentions. That there are things that are good, and there are things that are they serve purposes, but they're not good by themselves, right? That's they're not good by themselves because they have a purpose, but that's not the tov. That's not the tov. So, for example, people have a yetzer hara to do certain things. People have a yetzer hara to be successful in business. It's not necessarily a yetzer hara, but that drive of like competition. It's not an inherently positive thing. It can be used to create a lot of positivity. That's what Chazal say, kinasef and tavrachachma. That when 2 Talmidei Chachamim are like vying against each other, it's good. It creates more wisdom in the world. But that kina by itself, so kina taiva and kavod is metzinas adam in olam. If you become too jealous about stuff, then you end your life. You're never happy. You have miserable existence. So kina is a klipa. It's got a side that's okay, and it's got a side that's not so okay. This is what the Mekbalim explains. This is what the Balatani explains. It's called klipas noga. That is the husk that is closest to the fruit. Meaning, you can eat it. That you can eat, but it's not great. It's not like amazing. Like like the pistachios, you have a shell. You can't eat the shell of the pistachio. But there's that filmy stuff on the inside, right? You could eat it, right? Like nobody's not going to eat it, but it's not so like so what you want to eat when you eat pistachios. You wouldn't make a bracha just on that, right? You can eat it; it's fine.
Can't buy a Zayden just that.
Right? And you don't want to eat just that. Nobody wants it. You can deal with it. Like it's fine, and it serves a purpose. Like it makes sure that the pistachio doesn't go bad, and you can eat it. That's called klipas noga. There's some things that like you can do, but like if you bought a bag of that stuff, you'd be like, yeah, that's a weird thing to do, man. It's like you know what I'm saying? Like nobody ever wants like just like the white stuff in the orange. Like you'll eat it. Like, if your mom loves you a lot, she'll like make sure to like separate out all like the white things, right? But only if you're a very, very good boy. Otherwise, forget it. She'll cut your orange for you and squeeze it with your face, right? Go for it. But it's the rind you can't eat. But like the white stuff there is like, yeah, you can eat it. It's fine. It's not nobody's making a suda out of the white stuff inside of the orange. It's like ugh, right? So all the fruits, all the vegetables, everything that we eat, like it all has like these things, like the banana has the peel. You're not going to eat the peel, and then it's like the stringy things on the inside that like, yeah. That's the klipas noga. So what? Right, it's fine. You eat all the things. Kids don't, right? Kids get like weirded up at it.
But there are foods like a strawberry, language doesn't really have something that you have.
That's true. That's true. So
No, but they're us for to
Then you
eat.
get the
right. So what?
They're us for to eat.
Yeah, for sure. No, but for example, like Baruch Haim just said, it says, and that's why for fruit, sometimes fruit you can directly eat the fruit from the tree, right? So that's why fruit has a din of orla for the first 3 years. You can't eat anything. That's the klipa, right? For the first 3 years you can't eat any of it because that's all the rat. Because what happens? Meaning when a fruit is forming, so the shell forms first, right? Yeah, you don't end up with the like the juicy part,
inside out,
right?
Grows from the outside in.
Right. So that's true. That's true by everything. That's the din of orla is that that which is rat comes out first. Same thing. The same thing, by the way, is by a person. Children are born. Black one always say to us, children are born as narcissists. Babies are narcissistic, terribly so.
It's all about that.
Right? Baby, first day in this world, I'm hungry, I cry. I'm tired, I cry. I want somebody to change me, hug me, take care of me, cry. An adult that would do that? Gewalt. Now they give them a scholarship and send them to Harvard. An adult that does it, but no, right? That's but an adult that does it, you would never want to speak to such a person. But every time something's not going exactly the way you wanted, you cry. No, that's such a Yetzirah. No, the point is to grow out of that, to start off as a narcissist and then grow outwards and see, ooh, maybe I can think of things that are not just about me. Which is why Chazal tell us that it's only by a bar mitzvah that a kid gets a Yetzer Tov. Yetzirah you have from the day you're born. Yetzer Tov kicks in with maturity. Right? That's how the Apostle says in Mishnah, Melech Zakenu Ksil. So the old foolish king, that's called the Yetzirah, Chazal say. Old foolish king is the Yetzirah. He's older, 13 years older than the Yetzer Tov. The Yetzer Tov is a baby by the time the Yetzirah is a bar mitzvah boy. It's Yetzirah means all of the drives that a person has for themselves. It's a Yetzirah. Now, it's not a bad thing. Self-preservation is very important. That's the klipa, self-preservation. I scream because I want stuff, because I need stuff. But at some point in time, you become an intellectual individual to some extent, hopefully growing throughout our lives. We become more able to understand that it's not about me. The whole process of growing from being a kid to growing to being an adult is the transition between being a narcissist and a generous person. And self-preservation doesn't define my existence. I'm not here to preserve my existence. I need to preserve my existence in order to become somebody else. The purpose of existing is not to stay alive. And this is much of what we've discussed. Klal Yisrael, for most of the time in Geulah, struggles to stay alive. The point is we're supposed to thrive. So we'll just finish up this line here. It says, chazar oid upirish befrat b'yom ahu Hashem echad u'shmei echad. So we've said v'haya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, that it's going to be a time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is lemelech al kol haaretz. It's going to be as a king. Everybody's going to recognize that. So what does it mean by yom ahu Hashem echad u'shmei echad? Isn't it the same thing? It sounds like it's the same thing. If everybody recognizes, realizes that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in charge, he's the melech, and it's the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, Yud Kei Vav Kei Melech. Everybody sees Hayahu V'Viyah. He's Adon HaKol. He's in charge of everything, and I am an Eved to Hashem. So what does it mean? Hashem Echad U'Shma Echad. It says V'Havein. You need to understand. Shekol Hatikun Talu B'Soid HaYichud, that the entirety of the fixing of the world is in the unification of the name Hashem. What does this mean? Liyos HaKol Kesher Echad Ve'in Mafrid. To realize that everything is connected and that nothing is divisible. So that everything in the world is interconnected and everything connects to Hashem. And all of the subsidiaries are tied into their roots. That there's nothing that is not plugged in permanently to Hashem. And there's nothing that is not connected to everything else. There's nothing that is not connected to everything else. Everything is connected to Hashem, and therefore everything is connected to everything else. So you ask a question, does somebody on the other side of the world feel your tefillas?
Mhm.
The answer is, they might not feel it, but does it have an impact? Yes. Because everything is connected to the Rebbeinu Shalom. It says, until there is a conscious understanding of all things being connected to the one, the only one. And with this persistent, consistent understanding, there will be this increase and expanding of the light of Hashem, because everything will be reflecting off of everything else. It says, "V'habrachas tidchadeshna b'chol sha'a b'roiv shalom v'simcha," and the brachas at that point in time will be renewed every hour with shalom and simcha, with peace and with joy. Meaning that when everything is plugged in, say this as networking, Marshall, right? If you're trying to create a network, so if one thing is plugged in here and another thing is plugged in there, and they're both connected to the main network, so you can see that when you unplug it, this thing doesn't work anymore. You unplug that doesn't work anymore. But if everything is plugged in, then not only is it connected to the source, it's also connected to each other, right? That's if I have one phone that's turned on, and then on the other side of the world there's another guy that has a phone that's turned on. You see that those phones are connected to cell towers, and those cell towers connected to satellites, and those phones are. But if everybody has phones, like when there's like the emergency alert and everybody's phone dings at the same time, right? You realize like, okay, not only are we all connected, but we're all connected to each other. That there's relationships in proximity and similarity, that everything is connected. That's by that there's nothing divisible and there's nothing that is independent of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Lemelech means that I'm an Eved of Hashem. But by Hashem means, and so are you, and so are you, and so are you, and I see all of that. Right? Everything is like totally interconnected. That we are all made of the same everything. And I'll share with you just because it's Chodesh, so l'chaim. The Ibn Ezra says that is how it was with that kavanah that Moshe Rabbeinu was able to do miracles. It says the kavanah of doing nisim is to realize that everything is Ratzon Hashem, and the same way that the rock is a rock, because of Ratzon Hashem, the rock could be water with Ratzon Hashem. Meaning that there's no difference in the unity of the Rebbeinu Shalom between rock and water. It's all the same thing. It's all Ratzon Hashem. This is when you chavin like that, you understand that there's no separation between any of this.
Isn't that the same thing with the oil?
Yes.
Let the same Hashem
Correct.
who made this oil burn, let this vinegar burn.
Right. No reason not to. Same thing. It's the same thing. Baruch Hu says like this, you say like that. And that's not a nace. Meaning it is a nace, but it's Ratzon Hashem. Baruch Hu wants it to be like that, it'll be like that. And by it's Chodesh Nisan. It's Chodesh Nisan. It's Chodesh of Nisan. We should be Zayach to Nisan and Chodesh Mavarach. See you guys 6:35 tomorrow morning. Rock on.
Sure.